Hey, welcome to the Hell Has an Exit podcast. I'm your host, Bryan Alzate. This show is not affiliated with any specific 12-step program. If you or a loved one is struggling with an addiction, please find a local 12-step meeting. If you believe you may need detox or drug treatment of any kind, please call 888-699-9395 to speak to a specialist. The show is sponsored by United Recovery Project, a state-of-the-art drug and alcohol rehab facility. You can visit our website at unitedrecoveryproject.com. All right, welcome to Hell Has an Exit. I'm your host, Bryan Alzate. On this show, we interview individuals, a lot of recovering addicts that have lived through hellish conditions. A lot of people here are, addiction survivors. You can find out more on Hell Has an Exit on Instagram. That's usually where we post most of our things. I have a good friend and real predecessor, Louie Love here. So known you since basically I got clean. You're like, when I say predecessor, I mean like somebody that helped keep the doors open. Like when I first got clean, you were somebody that spoke all over the place, did tons of service. And I remember just following you around whenever you would speak. And, I remember like hearing your story, and I would go home and tell my parents like, oh, I just heard this speaker and like, all this stuff. And you made it attractive and you made it seem like recovery was possible. You have one of them stories that, not just like your story, just like who you are as a person, and through the years, like I still see you doing service, still see you going to meetings. And I can't say that about, too many people that, I got clean around. So if you want to just introduce yourself, where you're from.
All right.
Start off.
My name's Louie. They call me Louie Love. Like Bryan just said, I've been around for a long time. And now I just go by Louie.
Really? You don't go by Louie Love no more?
Well, a lot of people call me Louie Love, but I just, I used to introduce myself as Louie Love.
Wow.
But now, as I guess,
where did that name come from?
The age, well, the reason why I got Louie Love was my grandfather came from Puerto Rico. My grandfather was a boxer. Mm-hmm. He came to the States to spar with other aspiring fighters, great fighters. So he was always in the gym. So I was always following him. My grandfather was my big inspiration. And to say that, my grandfather did have an addiction. He drank on the weekends, but when he drank, he drank.
Yeah.
But being in the gym, I was always in the gym. So I started, boxing. He had me, doing these little things. At first I was, picking up towels and doing this and doing that. And then, so he finally got me in the ring and I started boxing. And one day I was in the ring sparring with another kid and he beat me bad. Beat me so bad.
How old were you?
I was like about 9, 10 years old.
And he whooped you?
Yeah, and I cried. Ooh, did I cry. The next time around that I turned around, I went into the gym because after that, my grandfather didn't want me in the witchcomb because, I cried.
In the ring, yeah.
But then, I stuck around, and about 12, I started hanging with these kids. And they were older than me. Mm-hmm. And I remember one of the kids giving me something. I didn't know what it was. I know I put it in my nose. And I went in the ring. This was about almost 3 years later with the same kid that beat me.
Oh, yeah? And you whooped him?
And I whooped him. And the kid was like, I'm hitting him with everything I got, but I couldn't feel nothing. And that was my first experience with
drugs.
With drugs, yeah. And I loved it.
So where does the name Louie Love come from? Because
I beat him so bad that they said I made love to him. So, it turns around that everybody started calling me Louie Love.
Wow. I thought they called you that when you got clean.
No.
You've been called Louie Love since then.
I've had that name since, I was about 11, 12 years old.
Holy cow.
Yeah. And then, out in the streets, I knew how to fight. From a very early age, I knew how to fight. And me being the person that I am, my ego and my pride, so I wanted to beat everybody, and if you said something to me, I was the first one to just, swing. I didn't have a problem with, arguing with you or nothing because I would just swing. And then once I swung, I got on you, I'm going to take you down. And that's how I proceeded to see life. Then I became a damn bully. Okay? Now, when, like I said, like about 11, 12, I got that, that sensation with the drugs, and I loved it. Not to say I did it every day, but when I did it, I flipped. It was like Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. I didn't know at the time. So my addiction just grew. It grew, I don't know, at the age of 14, 15, I started using needles.
What year was this?
It was, this was back in 76.
Wow. In Jersey?
Yeah, in Jersey, yeah. Because I'm originally from New Jersey, a city called Camden, Camden County. Right across Philadelphia, so I was always...
Camden's a nice place?
Yeah, Camden is the worst. Listen, at one time, Camden was top capital murder.
Murder capital.
In the whole United States at one time. The thing was that I was involved in all of that, but I didn't see that. Because
you lived there.
Trust me, I had a lot of friends disappear and didn't know why. I thought they had left... different states, or they moved out, and they were never to be seen again. At one time, I'll never forget, one of my mom's friends telling my mom that, your son is not going to, live to see 18 at that time. And I'm like, my mom, used to tell me, I was like, they don't know what they're saying. They don't know what they're doing. And it was almost true, because I remember, I got shot. Didn't know I got shot. All I knew is, I felt the sting, and next thing you know, I passed out.
Was it a drug deal, or?
I had robbed somebody, and I came back to the neighborhood. He seen me, and we just started having a shootout. And I remember, this is a funny story because, I think back, I'm like, wow. Remember running, and I don't know, about 10 blocks, 12 blocks away, I passed out.
Wow.
Now, mind you, I passed out in front of this neighborhood, and when I woke up, I woke up in the hospital. I woke up 2 or 3 days later. Anyway, I was in the hospital for a while, so I came out, I went back to the same thing. And I remember walking by the neighborhood again, and this lady coming out of her house, and just, holding her head and said, "Oh, my God," because they thought I was dead. And she said, "Wow, that's a miracle." And she comes out, "I got something for you." Well, it was the gun that I had when I passed out.
She grabbed it.
She grabbed it and held it for about 4 months.
What a nice lady.
Yes, she was nice. At the time, oh, my God, she was real nice because I got it. She gave it to me. And I went and sold it, obviously, because by this time around, I said I wasn't going to do the same thing, which I did anyway. And living in my neighborhood and in my county, it was real rough, And again, me doing what I was doing, I thought, that it was going to be the end. That was going to be the end of me. I never thought that I would live the life that I live today. I'll tell you that I never forget, in August of 2001, I can't say I was done. And mind you, I started the 12-step process in 1978. I went to my first meeting. Everybody thought I had a problem but me. I remember a gentleman telling me, Louie Love, nothing changes if nothing changes. And I'm like, what the hell? This was back in 1978, and this dude was 100 years old. I mean,
he was probably 35.
But I thought he was old. But anyway, and be honest with you, in 1978, there wasn't no young people. And, in
12-step meetings.
12-step meetings, there were no young people. I think I was the only one. So it took from 1978 to 2001, 23 years there later, And between there, I went to prison twice. I went to prison in 1981. I'll never forget. I was scared. I have been to county jails, but not to prison. And when I went to prison, I was scared. Once I got there, I seen him. It was like I seen my family.
That's what everybody
it was
says.
Because, everybody was like, Louie Love is here. Louie. I'm like, oh, hell no. And I got comfortable and I adapted, and I thought that was the life. Being locked up, I did 18 months the first time. I came home, and to think that when I came home, I was, everything was going to be okay. I mean, I'm going to start a new life and do this because I used to tell myself that, this time is going to be different. Mm-hmm. Well, 5 years later, I went back to prison. And this time I got 15 years.
Wow.
They couldn't prove it, but they gave me the 15 years because I was involved. Okay, but they couldn't prove that I did it because they wanted to give me 30 years. Mm-hmm. They couldn't prove that aspect. So I took a plea bargain of 15 years before, anything. They offered me that, and I said, all right, yeah, I'll take it. I remember in prison, I learned how to, take stuff in. Mm-hmm. And, once I learned, forget it. It was, it was on and popping. I got, pretty much everybody in the compound was my friend. You know how
selling
it is.
dope.
Exactly. I learned how to bring it in. It was, it was a lifestyle. One thing I didn't do was used. I never used. And, by the way, I came home in February 16th of 1993. I'll never forget. I came home 7.5 years later. But in that 7.5 years later, I never did a drug. Inside there, I brought it in, I sold it, but I never used it, And there was an old timer in there because I went to Trenton State Prison. That's one of the big prisons up in New Jersey. And I remember he said, he told me, he says, Louie, if you're going to do anything, don't do no drugs up in here. Trust me, you'll survive. But the minute you touch it, they're going to have you. And mm-hmm. I'm like, no, they ain't having me. Mm-hmm. And the way he put it was like, I thought I was going to be, somebody's bitch. Mm-hmm. I swear to God, that's the way I felt. And I was scared. And I said, so I held on to that for all them years, and he was right. I seen guys that, did what I did and then turn around and use, and then, them using him, mm-hmm. So, I learned in that aspect. So,
and you got off because they caught your prosecutor using, right? Or something like that?
No, I got off. The reason why I got off so early, because the person and it wasn't the prosecutor, it was one of the police officers, they overturned a bunch of his convictions. The prosecutor convicted, but because of that officer, they overturned a bunch of, mm-hmm. And I was one of them.
Why though?
Because they found him crooked.
He was a crooked cop.
Yeah, he was a crooked cop. Yeah, and I remember I went to jail and I did county time, which I did 364 days, and that was county time. Okay, I remember one time that same cop, it wasn't my drugs, and I don't know where he got it from, but he stuck it to me. Mm-hmm. So I went to jail and I did time for that, for mm-hmm. something that wasn't mine. I was now. That's where you go, I was wrongly convicted.
Yeah. First time ever. Innocent.
Yeah, and most of the times it was legit, but they found the city mayor I went to school with, and he was crooked.
Wow.
I never forget him, when they caught him, matter of fact, by the Delaware River. They didn't catch him, they caught one of his boys. Caught him in the Delaware River picking up packages because they used to drop him in the Delaware River, kilos, mm-hmm. and then pick him up. And then one of his boys, because it was for him.
And this was the mayor?
The mayor,
Get the fuck out of here.
Yeah. And the thing was that the city of Camden was a dump. And he lived in Camden.
So nobody cared?
No, it wasn't that nobody cared. It was that, he grew up in Camden and all of that. And then the fool turned around and built a beautiful, a mansion mm-hmm. in Camden, So obviously,
that's pretty obvious. Gotcha.
Come on, eventually they're going to know. Mm-hmm. You ain't making that much money to build the fucking mansion, mm-hmm. So, that's how, he got caught and all of that. But anyway, So the officer that had caught me and, arrested me when I got that time, he got convicted himself. And so a lot of his arrests got overturned, and mine's being one of them. I never forget, I had got a letter in prison from the state of New Jersey, and I just threw it on my bunk, and my roommate, my bunkie, said, "Louie, this is from the state." I says, "The hell, I don't care." I mean,
Yeah.
So he opened it and he started reading. He said, "Louie, your conviction got overturned." And I'm like, "What you talking about?" And he says, "Yeah, look at this," And he was always in the library reading and all, doing all of this. And I says, "What?" He says, "Yeah, you're getting out soon." I said, "Bullshit." I had like about almost 5 years in.
Yeah.
And sure enough, I did the 7 and I came home early, and because of that. And they kept telling me, "Listen, you can sue the state and all of this." But once again, I got into my addiction and totally forgot about that. I never forget coming back home. I said, "I'll never go back. I will never go. I'll do anything, go to the county jail, but I won't go back to prison." And I didn't. I went to county jail from that time on, but I was, I was comfortable in the county jail. Anyway, I went to a lot of detoxes and rehab, and they were all state funded. The only one that wasn't state funded, I went to Betty Ford in Pennsylvania. I got scholared there. Beautiful place, gorgeous. I'll never forget. They treated you with the most up respect. I remember another gentleman getting there, and he was from Philadelphia. His parents owned a horse carriage. In Philadelphia, they got them horse carriage rides, and his parents owned a whole bunch of them. So, he came out of money. And he went to Betty Ford because, his parents paid for it. And I remember him coming in, and, he was all strung out, and me helping him out. That's the first time that I remember coming around this time around, that I stuck a stay, that I did service work, that I helped somebody else out, and I didn't know. But he turned around after, I think a week, he got his, strength back,
Color in his
skin and all of that. And I remember him sitting down and saying, "I'm going to find a way to use and my life not be unmanageable." And I don't know why, the first time he said that, that drawed me to him.
Wow.
Because I'm like, I'm sticking with this guy.
He's got the knowledge.
He's got the answer. And you know what? I think 3 weeks later, we both left. I stuck with him for about 3 days, okay, using drugs. And I remember him telling me, "Louie, you got to get away from me. I can't take you no more. You're too much," And because when I used. I went on. I'll never forget, a year later, I'm in Camden, and I went and bought a bag, and going back home, as they called bandominiums, the old houses, and you use in there, And I remember going into this bandominium, going through the basement, through the trash and all of that, going to where everybody uses, and there was a gentleman sitting down. I looked that way, but I'm too into
what are you doing?
What I'm doing. And I did what I did, and I look back, and the dude's still in the same position. So I start yelling, saying, "Yo, you all right?" And then I go over there, and the dude is dead. Got a needle in his arm, sitting down. The good addict that I am, I check, I go check his pockets.
Of course.
Took off his socks and everything. I looked at him real good, and it was that gentleman that I had left with from Betty Ford, bro.
Years before.
And I didn't say nothing. It was in the summer, and I left. And about a week later, I go, I'm going back through that neighborhood, and I see the crime scene and all of that, and they found him by the stench, and I never said nothing. That stuck to me. Because, when he first came in, I helped him out, and then this time I didn't call nobody, That was one.
And that's what we talked about in the rooms, like you lose your humanness, because it's like you wouldn't have gotten caught. You wouldn't got in trouble. It just wasn't worth your time.
Exactly.
Like, yeah.
You know, and the thing is that, yeah, if I would have just called, I don't know, maybe, you know, who knows? I would have probably saved his life. Not saying that, you know, that would have happened, but at least they wouldn't have found him a week later by his stench.
1,000%.
You know?
Yeah.
So, but, you know, so that stuck with me. And I didn't understand when I came this time around about the baggage and all of that, because I didn't know. So, you know, that was one incident that stuck to me. I kept doing what I was doing. And, you know, I remember one day my daughter had her baby, my granddaughter, and she was like about a month old. And I'm standing in my mom's steps outside, and she's coming with the stroller. And I go up to her, my daughter, the first thing she says is, you know, don't touch my child, let alone look at her. Mm. That hurt so bad. It was bad for me.
How old were you at this point?
I want to say, I don't know, 35, something like that, you know. And I was still, you know, that stuck with me, you know. Matter of fact, I was 37 years old because this was in 2000. My granddaughter's 20 years old now. She'll be 21. Yeah, because this was right before, you know, I came to South Florida. I remember going, what am I going to do? Am I going to live like this? And I kept looking up, and, you know, I'm not religious. You know, I'm Catholic because my mom says I'm Catholic. And today I do have a belief. I have a faith. I have hope, you know. But back then I kept looking up and asking God, you know, am I going to live like this for the rest of my life? You know, what's going to happen with me? And I didn't know that I was suicidal. Didn't even know the word, you know? And all I kept saying was, God, please take me. I can't live like this no more, you know? And I remember going and using, and there was a gentleman, may God rest his soul. I found out he had passed away. I had seen him. I used with him for many years, and then I seen him, and he was well-dressed. He looked good, you know. He was walking. Matter of fact, he was going to a meeting. Okay, and I looked at him and I says, "Yo, you know," we called him Panch. I said, "Panch, you know, when did you get out?" You know, he says, "What you talking about, Louie?" I said, when did you get out? And, you know, because that's what we thought. You come back clean and all of that, you're in jail.
Prison, yeah, jail.
Yeah. And he says, "No, Louie, I was in South Florida. South Florida? I got 65 days clean, you know, and I just came from South Florida, and so I didn't want to hear it, and I left." I'm serious. I didn't want to hear, so I took off. About a month later, I'm going to the shooting gallery, and who do I see? Ponch, inside the shooting gallery. And he's using again. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, "Ponch, what happened? He says, "I don't know, man, Louie. I just, I guess I love getting high." And I looked at him, and we sat and talked. And he explained to me how did he get to South Florida, you know, and what did he do to get to South Florida. And he had told me, he gave me this place, it's called the Fellowship House up in Camden. He said he went, when he went there, he said all he had to do was get a plane ticket, and they found him a spot over here. And that stuck to me. And in the summer of 2001, matter of fact, July, I turned around and I walked through that spot, through that neighborhood, and I went and I knocked on the door of the Fellowship House. It's amazing how God works. Mm-hmm. The person that opened the door was the mother of my first 3 kids.
Jesus.
That was a trip. That blew me away.
Was she in recovery?
No,
wow.
She worked for the Fellowship. That was it. And she goes and tells me, "Louie, I've been waiting for you." And I go, "What are you talking about?" He says, "What are you here for?" I says, "I don't know. A friend of mine told me that, I can come get help here." And she says, "Yeah, you're right." So she got me connected to the person that was in charge in the Fellowship House. And so I went and we talked, and he told me, he says, "I can get you a place in South Florida." And I says, "Well, you know what, maybe I need a vacation. Because that's my thought. Maybe I need a vacation. Maybe all of this will go away.
Yeah, exactly.
So I said, all right. So he says, all you need to do is, get a plane ride. Buy your ticket and we'll set you up. So I said, well, I ain't got no money. I said, call my mom. And then they called my mom and they explained to her. My mom got me a flight, a one-way ticket, because it was a one-way ticket. And I'll never forget. She took me to the airport. It was August the 19th. And I said, I'm not going if I don't use one more time, And my mom went and got one of my brothers, and I got a bag. I did it, and And so I got here to South Florida. I remember August the 20th, 2001. And I landed, and I was supposed to be at the place.
And is this like a drug rehab?
No, it was the Lamb of God. It was
no detox?
No detox, no.
Just show up?
Show up and,
get out of here.
Yeah. They told me I had to detox for 3 days. But I didn't. Yeah. I just wanted to get out of Camden, period. So I came, and I remember landing, and I had about $38 that my father gave me. Okay, because my mom didn't want to give me no money. She said, no, when you get up there, call me. We'll get you a taxi, and they were going to pay for it. I don't know how, but anyway. So my father gave me $38, and I went, and I'll never forget. I landed, and I didn't call nobody. I went and got a cab. Told the cab driver, yo, take me to the first dope hole. And they took me to Sunrise. I didn't know where I was at, never been to Florida, didn't know, And I remember, I says, wait here, because I had the address. And I remember him parking, and all I had was a brown paper bag. I had a pair of pants, a shirt, pair of underwears, and a pair of socks, and the clothes I had on me. That's the only thing I brought. I didn't have nothing else. And I remember him throwing the bag out and taking off. And I'm like, damn. And I found somebody, first person you look in Sunrise back then, 2001. And this was Sunrise, east of 95, because that area, okay? I turned around and I'd seen somebody say, yo, where can I get some dope around here? He said, come with me and all this. And
it was definitely crack.
Well, it wasn't dope.
Wow.
That's what he thought.
Yeah.
Because he said, yeah, I got this. Matter of fact, now that you mention it, he said, I got this. I said, no, I want some dope. Well, this is dope. I said, no, some heroin.
Yeah. And
he goes, oh, come on with me. And then he took me to the spot. And they gave me a bag. Come to find out, I know it wasn't, I did it. It wasn't dope. I said, I'm fucked. Because South Florida got the shittiest dope, And I remember it was like about 7:30. And I remember going to the gas station on Sunrise, didn't know, and I asked directions. I had like maybe about $10, $8 left. And I said, well, how can I catch a bus to go to this address? And they said, the bus stop is right there, go take it. And so I waited at the gas station, and there was a gentleman that came in to get gas. I went up to him, and I had these brochures of the Lamb of God. I'll never forget. And I said, listen, I'm from Philly. I showed him my ticket because I left from Philadelphia.
Airplane ticket.
And I said, listen, I got to get to this place because I'm working with a minister. I'm from Philadelphia. I'm going to, I'm starting the classes here, Bible study classes, because since it was Lamb of God, I thought,
religious. You got a good story, yeah.
And he looked at me and he says, all right, well, come on, I can get you close to where you're going. So I actually, he gave me a ride, and I started talking to him, I'm from Philadelphia, and I preach, and, I help all these guys out, and the guy turned around, and I guess he got sick of listening to me, to my bullshit, that he said, listen, I'm going to turn right around here, and I'm going to drop you off. You're on Dixie. So you find your way. I said, bet. As long as I'm on Dixie, I can find my way. It's about 9:15. The place, Lamb of God, closes at 9:30. And as he turns around, the sign, Lamb of God.
Wow.
I'm like, whoa. I got out, went, And the director from the Lamb of God said, listen, man, we've been waiting for you. You know, you got off the plane at 6:30. You know, you're getting here now. And I'm like, well, I got lost.
Of course.
He says, you know, finally, he says, your mom's worried. You need to call your mom. And she thought, you know, and so I went and called my mom, and I said, listen, Mom, I'm all right. I arrived. She says, what happened? I said, none. I got stuck in, you know, somewhere, you know, lied.
Mm-hmm.
And so I went to the Lamb of God. I remember being there, and they helped me out for about a week.
Mm-hmm.
I got there on a Tuesday, on a Sunday. They had me going at 10 o'clock to a meeting every day. From the time I got there, I had to be at this meeting at the 101 on Dixie Highway at 10 o'clock in the morning. And so the first day I went, I just stood there, didn't say nothing. When I went back, they said, listen, you got to raise your hand and just, you know, tell them where you're from, what's your name. Introduce yourself. I said, man, I don't want to, you know. And he says, just introduce yourself. You ain't got to say nothing else. So I started doing that. And I remember on a Friday, a girl came up to me, and she goes, Louie. And I'm like, I'm looking at her. Well, her name was Robin. She comes up, Louie, you don't remember me? And I'm like, remember you? I'm Robin. I'm Wadu's wife.
Mm-hmm.
Wadu was my cellmate back in Transit State Prison.
Mm-hmm.
She used to go visit him. And I'm like, wow. And I looked at her, and she had been here about almost 10 months. You know, the last time I seen her, she weighed maybe 80 pounds soaking wet. Now, she was about 130, 140 pounds, had it all in the right places. I'm like, wow, you know. And she says, man, I'm grateful that, you know, somebody from where my neighborhood, you know, is here. And I'm like, wow, you know. So, you know, we started chatting and all of that. And then on Sunday, we went to the beach. Well, I've been to the beach up in Jersey, and the water's freezing. And it was August, and I go to the beach, and I get in the water, and the water is warm. I mean, it's hot. It's bath water. I've never got in, you know, ocean like that. So we were having fun. And the gentleman that took us from the Lamb of God said, Louie, we got to go. And everybody was staying, and I didn't want to go. I went back pissed off, and that night, Sunday night, I remember the director taking me down to his office, and, you know, because I was pissed off and I was cursing and doing this and this is all messed up and all this place ain't shit, you know. And I remember him telling me,
like you got options.
Yeah, right. No, like, you know, and I remember him telling me, he says, man, you know, we gave you a place. You ain't from here, you know. We're giving you food. You came out of a place eating out of dumpsters. You slept in condominiums and old houses. And I'm like, you don't know me. I ain't never done that, you know. And I turned around and said, listen, man, you can stick this place up. And I walked out.
Mm-hmm.
And as I'm walking out I grabbed my bag. I'm walking out in the parking lot. And I'm looking up, and I'm starting to cry. For the first time, I'm scared in my life. Because I'm in a place I don't know where I'm at. Usually I go to places and I get back home. Mm-hmm. Now I don't know whether to go left, right, you know, east, north. I didn't even know where none of that was at. And I'm walking, and I'm crying because I don't know where am I going. And I hear like an echo, Louie Love. Louie Love. And I'm like, and I look back, and it's Robin. And I'm wiping my eyes so she won't see me cry. You know how that goes. I got to be a man, you know. And then I tell her, I says, nah, you know, these people just threw me out. Knowing they didn't throw me out, I left, you know. And she says, oh, you know, I says, I ain't got nowhere to go. She says, come with me. She was the manager of the women's halfway house. Mm-hmm. The halfway house she was at. She made a couple of phone calls, and I got into First Step, Sober House. Now, First Step Recovery is, that was the first time, Sober Living, yeah. So they took me over there, and I remember Richard Intricate, may God rest his soul, because he's, you know, I mean, when I tell you he was one of my predecessors, you know, he took me in that Sunday night. They fed me, okay? for once, I said, you know what? I was just out in the streets. I was scared. I'm going to start listening to these people. I don't know what's going on, but you know what? Everything they tell me what to do, I'm going to do. So, I got a bed. I remember the first night, because by this time, I was using methadone. So my first 5 days, 6 days, I was fine because I didn't get sick. Mm-hmm. And then after the 5th day, the 6th day, I got real sick. And that was when I got into First Step.
Wow, you're on methadone that whole time at Lamb of God?
No, I was on methadone coming from what's called, because what happens is methadone will stay in your system and won't allow you to get sick between 4 to 6 days. Mm-hmm. So I turned around and, I wasn't using nothing. I wasn't doing nothing. But when I got to First Step, I started getting sick. Mm-hmm. And I remember that first night and I couldn't sleep and I'm bawling and, I'm starting the withdrawals. Mm-hmm. So I remember Monday morning, me getting out of bed and getting into the shower and staying, back and forth in bed in the shower Monday. He gets in, he says, Louie, what? I says, listen, man, I'm real sick. He says, you got to stick through it, and also you got to go find yourself a job. And I'm like, what? My roommate was working at a labor ready. So on Tuesday, I went with him. Even though I was sick, I went with him. And I filled out the paperwork and I stood out there and we went like about 5:30 in the morning. I couldn't sleep anyway. So, I went with him and about 9 o'clock, they called my name and I went to go work. They put me in this place working at a tree company. And I remember, I struggled that first 8 hours.
Man, being dope sick, we can't even get people to go to group.
No, listen to this. I did it, bro. But the thing was that I sweated. When I tell you, at the end of the day, my clothes were soaked and wet. Okay, not because I put a hose on. It was because I was sweating. I remember going back to the labor ready at the end of the day, and they giving me a paper check. And it was for $27.50. And I just bust my ass for $27.50. Okay. And I come back. And I remember I was pissed because I didn't even cash it. Because I just bust my ass for 8 hours and getting $3-something an hour. I'm like, you crazy. Florida's sick. Florida's crazy. I remember going back and telling Richard, listen, Richard, this shit ain't going to kick it, man. I got to, He says, what's going on? I said, man, I just worked out. He said, good. You got a job. I said, well, I worked at this labor ready that Ron took me to. These people paid me $27.50. And I worked at a tree company, hauling them trees, branches to the shredder and, for 8 hours. And they give me $27.50. And he looks at me and he says, Louie, what are you talking about? I said, what you mean, Richard? Look at this. $27.50. And this was that Tuesday evening. And I remember Richard telling me, you should be grateful. And I looked at him and I'm in my head, I'm like, what the fuck grateful got to do with this shit? I just bust my ass. I'm not doing this shit again, And he says, you should be grateful. And I'm like, well, what grateful got to do with this? That ain't even $4 an hour, the minimum wage, I think it was 5 something. And he goes, listen, bro, let me ask you something. What did you have yesterday? And I looked at him and I'm like, no, I didn't have nothing yesterday. He said, that's right. But yet you got a bed, they fed you. So where's your gratitude? And here I'm still thinking, what does gratitude has to do with this, And I thought about it, and then I said, Richard, you know what? You're probably right, bro. I don't know what to do. I don't know what to say. I don't know where to go, I don't feel the way you're saying, whatever you're saying, I don't feel that, And I remember him telling me, Louie, just stick around a little bit longer. you see what I'm talking about. And I seen the sparkle in his face, bro. And then, I'm like, I thought he was laughing at me because I was, I only got paid $27. And he said, Louie, stick a little bit longer and you'll find out what gratitude means, And I'm like, wow, And he says, yeah, now when you cash that check, $27, give me 20 of it. I was like, in my head, I was like, this dude didn't just say this.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't say nothing. I walked off because I didn't want to say something that would throw me out or I regret or whatnot. I walked off and went to my room and I'm talking to Ron and I'm telling him the story about what just happened. And Ron said, Louie, you got $7.50. Look around you. And I'm looking and I'm like, what you talking about? And he says, you got a bed? I says, yeah. He says, guys fed you, right? You ain't going to go hungry, Be grateful. And when I heard that from him, I don't know, it was like, it was a meaning.
Mm-hmm.
It was some kind of meaning to it. And I'm like, you got to be kidding me, man. And the way he said it and the way Richard said it was like totally different.
Mm-hmm.
But when Ron said it, I was like, you know what? You're right, Ron. You're right. And he said, Louie, you got a repeat ticket. And I'm like, a repeat ticket? He said, yeah, they gave me, the ticket. You could go back to the same place tomorrow. And I looked at him, I said, what? And you know what? I didn't say, I turned around and said, listen, I'm not going. I'm definitely not going. So, we went to bed. Again, I didn't sleep. Ron gets up at 4:30 and gets ready to go. And Ron, wait for me. And I went.
Mm-hmm.
And for the next 4.5 weeks, I worked with a repeat ticket at that same place for $27.50. And after the third, fourth
and
day,
giving Richard 20,
and giving Richard $20 out of each day, bro.
Wow.
And you know what? I remember the first week that I gave that man $20 every day because my rent was $100. You know how good I felt?
Mm-hmm.
It was something that changed in me, and I don't know what it was at the time. Now I know it was like a spirituality just came inside me and just, and it was so great. And I just kept going. Them $7.50 added up. I mean, I didn't believe it. It actually added up. I went to the thrift store, got me, couple of pants, couple of shirts. I remember getting me these Air Max, the knockoffs, the Air Max. I remember paying $9 for them, and I looked sharp.
Yeah, 1,000%.
And now I was dressed, the outside was, I was feeling good in the inside. Now I started dressing the outside, and I remember 4.5 weeks working for that tree company. I remember on a Friday, Steve, I would never forget, he was the owner. He said, Louie, Monday when you come in, don't go to the labor ready. Come straight over here. And I'm like, oh, shit, he's going to fire me. Mm-hmm. I got used to the $27.50. Yeah. And that weekend, it was like a year because it wouldn't come fast enough. Because I was scared that he was going to fire me. Mm-hmm. He called me in his office and, Monday morning I had to. And when I get there Monday morning, we start at 8 o'clock. I was there about 6:30, sitting, and here he comes. I said, Louie, I says, nah, I got here early, I need to find a job. And he looks at me because I'm still thinking he's going to fire me.
Yeah.
And I'm like, and he says, Louie, come in my office. And I says, all right. Then he gives me this paper. It's a W-2 form. And I'm like, what is that? I hadn't seen one of them. I don't know. And he says, Louie, that's a W-2 form. Fill it out. And I'm like, yeah, but for what? He said, well, because I'm going to hire you. You don't have to go to labor ready. I looked at him. I said, what? He says, yeah, you're a hell of a worker. I says, yeah, but how am I going to get paid? I got to go over there to get my check. it's still not hitting.
Not clicking.
Not clicking. So I filled it out. And then he said, Louie, how does $8 an hour sound? Back in 2001, $8, bro?
Sounded straight.
Man, I thought, listen, I'm rich. Oh, no, I was rich, bro. And then I worked, and I worked hard that day. And mind you, I skipped the whole part about me sweating every day when I first started working. Didn't know that by me sweating every day, the toxins were coming out of my body, and that's why I was feeling better every other day, you know? And I would never forget, it was like, I don't know, the 16th, 17th day, I slept for about 20 minutes, and I thought I slept the whole night, bro. And that felt so good, bro. He hired me, and you know, it was the best thing that ever happened to me. And by this time, you know, I'm going to meetings every day. You know, I'm meeting people, and I'm even helping out people. You know, I'm helping out guys that are just coming in to the halfway house that I was in. You know, so and I didn't know. I got involved in this group. I was making coffee. I started greeting, then I made coffee, and it felt good. You know, and the reason why it felt good, because people started recognizing Louie Love. You know, everybody, Louie Love, Louie Love. And I'm like, wow, you know, damn, you know, and it felt good, you know. I remember calling back home in December and telling them I couldn't go back. And it was hard, because all my family's back home, you know. But for some apparent reason, I met a new family, and it felt so great. I went home in December 2001. I went home for 8 days. I paid my flight to come back. The 4th day that I was home, I wanted to get high. I'm pacing back and forth over my mom's, I never forget. And I sit down in the living room. My mom's making something in the kitchen. She comes up and she looks at me. She says, Louie, what's wrong with you? And I'm like, nothing, Mom, nothing. And here my mind is just going, because I want to get high. How can I get away to go get, you know, what I want? And the 3rd time she comes up and she says, Louie, what the effing's wrong with you? Mom, I want to get high. It just came out. And that was the first time
you ever admitted it.
I was honest. That I had actually got honest, not only with me, but with another human being. And she says, what are you talking about? It's, you know, it's been 4 months. You know, I said, Mom, no, I you know, I don't know, but I'm an addict and I want to get high. And the first thing I said, Mom, I got to go back. I can't stay here. My mom crying. I'll never forget. It's sensitive. It's a sensitive issue, you know, because my mom prayed for me for all them years. And for the first time, she finally got the son that she wanted, you know. And because them 4 days that I was there, she was happy. And because I told her, I says, I can't leave because I don't have no money and I can't change my flight. And then she says, well, call your dad. And I'm like, I know he's not gonna give me nothing. I know him. He's not gonna do nothing for me, you know, because I always believed that my father didn't care for me and none of that, you know. So I gave in and I called my dad. And when I called my dad, the first thing he said, I ain't got no money. And I said, see, Mom, I told you. And I went to go hang up and my mom grabbed the phone. So I guess my mom explained to him, and then she gave me back the phone, and my dad said, I'll call you back. I said, man, he ain't calling back, and I hung up. My sister calls, and when my sister calls, she said, Louie, you're leaving tomorrow morning at 6:30 in the morning. And this was like about 2 o'clock that day in the afternoon. And I said, all right, bet, you know. And I was, you know, I was feeling a little bit more relief. About 3:30, my dad walks in through the door. You know, my mom and my dad are separated. I mean, you know, my mom and my dad stayed best friends. So my dad would come, you know, to my mom's house, and he walks in about 3:30. Pack up your stuff, you're leaving. I'm like, what you mean I'm leaving? Jenny just called me. Jenny's my sister, by the way. She says I'm leaving at 6:30. He says, yeah, no, you are leaving at 6:30. but you're leaving with me now because you're not leaving my sight. That was the best thing my dad ever did for me, bro.
Wow, that's cool.
I mean, listen, bro, it was something that, I don't know, it was something out of this world. Because, for the first time, my dad, and at the time, I didn't see it. That day, I didn't see it. I seen it, months later. But, my dad got me to where I'm at today, because if it wasn't for him, heaven knows what would have happened. So I stuck with my dad until 6:30. He watched me walk in that plane. Now, mind you, I called a couple of friends over here, and I told them what happened, They picked me up at 9:30 in the morning. I believe it was on a Friday morning. They picked me up at the airport because by this time I had friends in Florida, that cared. And so I had a ride. They picked me up at 9:30 because I arrived about 9:10 and went straight to a meeting.
Nice.
And that was the best thing. And then you know what? I had by this time I had learned, and I raised my hand and I said, listen, I went back home, and a couple of days later I felt like using. Deep down inside I didn't want to use, but my mind kept telling me, and they said, yeah, you're an addict. Now you know that you're an addict, but the good thing about it is you're a recovering addict. You didn't pick up. You did what you were supposed to do. Just continue on. Mm-hmm. And, I remember calling back home and say, Mom, forget it. I can't ever go back. Can never go back. And she says, that's good. I guess, you're finally a man. At 38, I was 38 years old. She says, you finally turned into a man. I said, yeah, Mom, Now, mind you, I got my wife back at home, and the kids. Now, still by this time, I had about 4 months clean, almost 4 months clean. My wife still didn't want me home, so I was staying over my mom's. I remember calling her up. This was in 2002 in January. Never forget. She's over my mom's. My mom hadn't told her nothing, that I had already told my mom that I wasn't going back. So I turned around and I'm talking to her, and I told her, listen, I can't go back. She goes, what? You probably found yourself a girl down there. I don't know, but that's what they think. And I'm like, no, I didn't. I just can't go back because I'm going to go back to the same thing. I just experienced something that, right now, for me, my decision is made. Now, we'll talk later. So she thought that I was, that was it, I remember the following week I called my mom. She was over my mom. Matter of fact, after that, she was over my mom's every day. Did Louie call? Did Louie call? And then I remember a week later, I called and we started talking. And I remember telling her that, what, I've done the same thing over and over for 23 years. I've gone to different places, went back home and did the same thing. This time, I'm 38 years old. I got to live a life, and if you want, give me time. We'll work something out. I'll get a place once I'm stable enough and get this. I'll get a place down here and I'll go pick you up. And she says, nah, you're not going to do that. Nobody believed me. Nobody ever believed nothing I said. And especially back home. I'm here in South Florida, people started believing in me. But back home, nobody believed in me.
Of course.
So that's just what I did. I worked and went to meetings, did what I was supposed to do. I had about 9.5 months, I got an apartment.
Nice.
2-bedroom apartment. It was from somebody in the rooms. They had a place, that they needed to rent out. And I said, all right, bet, By this time, I'm making about $12 an hour, which, was a good thing. So I had saved enough money to give them the first month and the first security. So I got the apartment. My wife's like, when you picking me up? No, I got to stay here a couple months to see if I can pay for it. Because, see, I didn't know. And I remember people telling me, Louie, it's a 2-bedroom. Let me rent the other room. I said, nah, I got to do this on my own, And 3 months later, I went back to Jersey, picked up the wife and kids, even a dog. I'll never forget, and brought him back to South Florida.
Wow.
It took me 19 and a half hours, almost 20 hours to get there. It took me 37 hours to get back.
Wow.
Because the kids were driving me crazy. And not that I stopped at a hotel, none of that. We stopped at a gas station. I slept for an hour or two and kept going. And then I caught a flat in North Carolina, and it was like about 1 o'clock in the morning. And you know, this is how God works. A state trooper came. I didn't have a spare. And this is at 1 o'clock in the morning. And he was so nice that he called his friend, had a tire place, took me there, brought me back, and changed the tire. We were well on our way, you know, and how at that time people were so friendly. And not saying that people ain't friendly now, but with the things that's going on in the world now, you know. But anyway, especially law enforcement, you know, you never think that they would do that, you know. But anyway, so it took me 37 hours, and I was going crazy. I was going fucking nuts. And I never forget getting here, and they kept saying, I think it was way before the movie, are we there yet? Are we there yet? I should have invented that movie, because that's all the kids kept telling me, are we there yet? So we get here, and I remember the first 2 weeks. After the first 2 weeks, my wife says, it's the same shit all over again. And I didn't understand what she meant. I was working, and after work, I would go home and go to a meeting and come home at night. So she wasn't seeing me. Yeah. So it was like, you know.
Yeah, she thought you were disappearing.
Yeah, just doing the same thing. And I kept telling her, you know, and she knew when I was high. Even if I wasn't nodding or whatnot, she could tell. And she knew I wasn't getting high, but it was like deja vu again. So I made a pact with her and said, all right, you want to come with me? Because I'm not going to stop, but you can come. She came to the first meeting, and my wife's not an addict or, you know, an alcoholic or any of that kind. You know, my wife's a normie, you know, and she loved it.
That's cool.
And you know what? She supported me throughout this whole time. I remember she did not pick up a drink for about 3-4 years because she didn't want to, you know. I mean, now she'll drink, you know, martinis.
But she was supporting you.
But she supported me all through the way. And
That's
you know,
awesome.
That woman is, you know, you talking about a better half. You know, my kids, they were young, you know, and I brought them through the process, through the meetings. They learned. They learned so much that my kids, I have 4 kids here, and they're the best, you know, and they got kids of their own. You know, and believe me, I mean, you know, you know, they drink socially, with the exception of one that I thought he was the bad apple and he's the best one. And not to say all my kids, I love them all. But, you know, he doesn't drink, he doesn't smoke, he doesn't, you know, do nothing. All he does is take care of his kids. He goes out on vacations, you know, he does this, but he does a lot with his kids. I never thought that would be
him.
Yeah, not only be him, but that I was capable of raising kids like that. You know, because I mean, I did for so long. Because as you know, Brian, I got 9 kids. You know, I got 6 boys and 3 girls, and I raised the last 4, and I got them all in my life. They're all in my life. They're all grown. I mean, you know, they all have kids. My oldest grandson, he'll be 21.
Wow.
You know, I mean, it is amazing how I can see all of this, you know, and through this process, you know, it's going on 20 years that I've been in South Florida. I love
awesome.
it. You know, I've gotten offers, you know, I mean, I got an offer not too long ago to go back to Jersey. I don't know. I spoke to you. They had opened up something over there, and I said, nah, I'm fine just where I'm at, because, you know, and not that I'm comfortable, but I'm just fine where I'm at, you know. Maybe comfortable has to do a lot, but I love the people that I'm around, you know, and especially I love South Florida. I can't go do that 4 seasons again, you know. Life is great, man. You know, I could tell you that I go through ups and downs, and you know, you, Brian, you've known me for so long. Sometimes I'll call you for advice or something like that. Not too long ago, I did that, and I went through something that I thought, it wasn't going to pass, and to think that I tell people, be patient, have faith, have hope,
Trust the process.
Trust the process.
Yeah.
And I tell people that. And yet, not too long ago, I went through something and people were telling me this and I didn't want to hear it at the beginning. And then to sit back and reflect on myself and then think about, wow, they're throwing exactly what I learned and I taught other people, they're throwing that back at me. And you know what? They're so right. Everybody, And yeah, it takes a process, believe me, because I hurt. I hurt bad. I remember the first week I couldn't close my eyes. I remember, matter of fact, I just did step work with one of my sponsees this week, and he's been trying to get, and I've been in the process that I've been in, and we were speaking on Tuesday because he came over to the house and he was telling me that he was going to get somebody else because I don't mean no harm, and I was like, that's okay. But then I spoke to other people and they say, listen, he's got to go through his process, give him time, be patient, and you know what? He says he made the best decision not to do that and to stay. You understand? And that was awesome just to hear that. Again, every day, it's a process. I go through things, but one thing I don't do is that I don't pick up no matter what. The good thing about it is that, I have faith. Again, I'm not religious. My mom says I'm Catholic. I said it at the beginning and I say it again. I'm Catholic because my mom says I'm Catholic, but I do have a belief. I do have a higher power. Okay. Not only do I believe in him, I have faith. I have hope. And you know what? Everybody around me, even the people because I got friends that are not in this process, and they're good friends. Because if I call them and I need something, they're there for me. They tell me the same thing. And I says, damn, you sure you ain't in this process, And the good thing about it is that, everybody loves me. And the best thing that God ever gave me was that I love myself today. And that's awesome, just with that aspect. But again, this couldn't be possible. When I say this couldn't be possible with not trusting the process. And trust me, I trust the process.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so with that, thanks, bro.
Absolutely. Thank you, Louie. It's always good to see you. Like it's hard to see it when you're in it, you know what I mean? And I always tell people like it's easy to tell someone when they're going through it, but when you're going through it, you're just like, what the fuck are you talking about? Like no one wants to hear that shit,
I'm glad I'm not the only one.
Absolutely, man.
I'm glad I'm not the only
one. And, like I was talking to my sponsee and like last night, like I kind of fucked up my car. He had to come pick me up and call a tow truck or whatever. And he was looking at me and he was like, I was wondering if this was going to piss you off. And I was like, I mean, there ain't nothing you could really do. You know what I mean? He was just like, damn, bro, like there ain't nothing that really bothers you. Like I really don't get upset at things because it don't do nothing.
Right.
It takes a lot for me to like really get out of my element and get angry or whatever. And it has happened in like the past couple of years. But like I always feel like whenever those things happen, I do what I'm supposed to do. I reach out to people. I go to meetings. I write about it. I do step work on it. And it helps me from making the situation worse. Because when I act out in those feelings, I get pissed off and I get angry. And I always tell people, like when people relapse, I'm always like, asking them like, oh, so why'd you relapse? Like, oh, well, I lost my job and then my girl broke up with me. I was like, so you used? They're like, yeah. So I was like, oh, you showed them. You know what I mean? Like I'm sure your job is like, damn, bro, we heard you smoke crack. We want you back. Or your girl is like, damn, you used. Come back to me. I always tell people it's like getting a flat tire and getting out and popping the other 3 tires, That process of like letting go of that self-destruction is not easy because you're so used to it. And I remember all the time when I was using, it was everyone's fault. It was poor me. It was playing the victim story. I remember the first time like something happened and really all I had to do was do nothing. Like I just had to let it pass and let the emotion pass. And it's kind of like watching the clouds. Like sometimes there ain't nothing you could do. You just got to let it go by. Recovery taught me that.
It's a good analogy that you just said. Cause and I'll probably use it. It's like a cloud. It's gonna go by.
Yep.
You know, it's the cloud is not gonna stay on top of you. It's gonna go by, and that's just what it. That's just what you've taught me. And I say you, Bryan, because you know what? I learned a lot from you.
Thank you.
You know, I learned a lot from you and other people. It doesn't have to be that somebody has to be here for years and years. No. And you're absolutely right. I've seen guys that, go back out and use. And I ask them the same thing, so why did you use? Oh, I lost this and, I just didn't have anything to live for. And I'm like, what you mean? You have everything to live for, but that's your choice. Now, I tell everybody that I'm going to make mistakes, because I am. I'm going to make mistakes, The good thing about it is that this process has taught me to look at my mistake so I won't do it again. See, I've never done that in my life. I've always made a mistake and made the same mistake over
and over.
Because I never
learned the lesson.
Yeah, exactly. Learn the lesson. I tell these guys, I had a gentleman today call me when I was coming over here. Because as you know, I don't know, I didn't mention this, I own halfway houses since 2006, and thank God, I'm not in it for, the pay or none of that. I'm in it to help out people. That's why I've been,
Still
it's been
around.
so long,
Yeah.
I'm still around. It's just, so I had a guy that I just, that just called me, and I've known him for years, and he was out in the street. So he asked me, and I said, yeah, sure, why not? I had a bed available, so I gave it to him. And this was on, I think, matter of fact, Friday night. He calls me up today and says, Louie, I got a better offer because where I'm at. I'm like, I'm going to, move out. And I said, okay, no problem. I didn't want you to get mad. I'm not going to get mad, bro.
Yeah.
If you got to move on, He said, whatever I owe you. I said, no, bro. Not once did I ask you for any money. Don't ever think that I'm in it for the money. No, but I understand you got to pay bill. It gets paid. You know what? I trust the process. I've been doing this for so long.
Yep.
The bills are going to get paid, regardless you're there or not. Okay? So he's like, and I says, and then now the evil side of me start thinking and saying, oh, he's going to need me again. He's going to need me again. But I'll help him out again.
Of course.
Because that's just the way I am. These guys, sooner or later, is going to stop. And I tell them, you're either going to wind up in jail for a long time or either you're going to die. Well, recently, there's been a lot of deaths.
Yeah.
It's hard. I
always tell people, like addiction don't last forever. You're going to die. You know what I
exactly.
mean? Like this ain't going to last forever.
No.
And like the days of seeing 50, 60-year-old opiate addicts are gone. I tell people all the time, when was the last time you've seen someone 50, 60 years old shooting dope? People are shooting dope for 2 or 3 years now, and that's it. You don't have a long career as a dope fiend anymore.
Ain't no way in the world.
And not just that, at the same time, people are getting clean younger and younger anyways,
Oh, it's happening.
I'm going to end with this. This one time I was at this H&I meeting. We did that same H&I for years, man. You and I did IRT for years.
All the time.
I remember I had this guy come in and speak, and, I used to do the men's meeting. So it's like 50, 60 men. And as a young kid doing the meeting, it used to be intimidating for me, And I brought this guy in to speak. And he's like, I'm going to tell everybody the secret. I'm going to teach everybody here how not to get high. And he was like, there's only 2 things that can get you high. And I was listening like, oh, wow, this is good. I never heard this before.
Exactly.
And this guy's got a lot of clean time. And he's like a predecessor. He's like, I'm going to teach you guys 2 things. These are the only 2 things that could get you high. And that's your left hand and your right hand. And you know what? Like the people that have been here long enough, like, bro, they really keep it simple.
Yeah.
Like they keep it simple. And not to say that people, places, and things ain't an issue, but there are things that make it harder and there are things that make it easier. But at the end of the day, you just got to not use for one day. And, when you went to Camden, you realized like, oh shit, I can't be here. And you went back. And that's not forever. Like I tell people, like, bro, this ain't forever, bro. No. But you got to build a solid foundation. I'm sure you travel all over the place now.
Now I travel
of
home.
course.
I love it. Listen, I'm leaving in September. I'm going because I haven't seen my folks. And I speak to them every day. But I haven't seen my folks in about almost 2 years. And in September, I'm planning to go in September. Because as you know, I love riding bikes. Even though I had an accident, I'm
you don't
still
care. That's crazy, bro.
So yeah, in July, June, I'm leaving to Tennessee because I'm going to the Bristol track over there because I'm getting on the track over there. And
you track your Gixxer?
Yeah, the Gixxer. Yeah, I changed the fairings and everything, put a track bike. So I'm leaving for 2 weeks, but then when I get back, because my mom's like, when are you coming down? Well, I haven't seen you in 2 years, and I turn around and I said, well, Mom, get an iPhone so I can FaceTime you. I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to get none of that. You call me on the phone because I still call her on the landline. Yeah. She still has the same number for about 50-something years. I said, Mom, I'm going in September. So, Bryan, you said the key, the foundation. When I go back, I set myself, if I go back for 7 days, out of them 7 days, I'm going to 4 meetings, okay? And people already over there know me, and I can imagine when I get back in September, they're going to say, damn, Lou, we miss you, because that's what I do. A couple of times I've been back home and gone to meetings, and they say, Louie, can you come back tomorrow to speak? I'm like, yeah, sure, why not, And that's what I do. So, am I scared to go back home? No. One thing I don't do is go back to them old people, places, and things. Yeah, I see old people, but like you said, there's no more old people shooting dope no more.
Absolutely.
They're nothing but getting younger, younger and younger. And where I come from, forget it, I mean, I go there. If I drive through Broadway, I'll see him, and you see him nodding out or whatnot, and I'm like, wow, that was me,
Yeah, I was telling someone the other day, because they were like, oh, does alcohol bother you? There's a difference between, your first couple of years clean and like your first couple months clean. You know what I mean? So it's like, alcohol don't really bother me. I could go and people can drink in front of me, but it's like, if I was vegan, I could go to a steakhouse and order something vegan, and you can order a steak and it won't bother me. But I probably wouldn't go to a butcher shop. You know what I mean? Like I might go to a restaurant where they're serving steak, but I ain't going to a butcher. I got no business in a butcher shop. You know what I mean? I probably wouldn't date a butcher. You know what I mean? Like there's a difference between dating somebody who eats steak and dating a butcher. I don't date drug addicts. I don't hang out with people shooting dope. I don't hang out with people that recreationally smoke crack or some shit. I don't like being around people that do coke. And for me, I know my own recovery, and I don't focus on what everyone else does. I know what feels okay with me, and I got my own boundaries, and I got the way I live my own life. I feel like that's the key to staying clean long term, because what works for me might get you high.
Exactly.
Exactly. So with
God bless you, Bryan.
Thank you, bro. I love you, man. Appreciate
I love you too.
Right.
Thanks for having me, bro.
Thank you.
All right.
This show is not affiliated with any specific 12-step program. If you or a loved one is struggling with an addiction, please find a local 12-step meeting. If you believe you may need detox or drug treatment of any kind, please call 888-699-9395 to speak to a specialist. The show is sponsored by United Recovery Project, a state-of-the-art drug and alcohol rehab facility. You can visit our website at unitedrecoveryproject.com.